What's up, guys? Welcome back to Fit Body Secrets, where my mission is to bring you guys inspiration, motivation, and a ton of tips to help you guys on your fitness journey. Well, today, I feel like it's kind of more like a little bit of my own fitness fails or my own nutrition fails as somebody who has also been down the ringer of different diet tactics and nutrition fads and all that kinds of stuff. And as I was getting ready to start this podcast episode, I have to just share with you guys, I was like, man, I wonder what they think of my podcast studio. I have been podcasting literally from my kitchen counter for the past, I don't know, maybe a couple of months. I'm still in the works of figuring out what I want to do at my office, but right now I just feel more comfortable out here. And today I didn't feel like sitting. Maybe it's because I'm anticipating the wonderful bike sprints that I have scheduled for this afternoon. So trying to keep my legs nice and loose for that. But anyways, I wanted to actually this was just some stuff that was on my mind lately that I wanted to reflect on, that I know that I still get a lot of questions about from people that might have these same beliefs that I had at one point. And I just want to kind of clear the air on some of the things and the reality is it's okay to change your mind on things. In fact, a lot of the things in nutrition, in terms of fads that come along, they come and go. And a lot of times we do realize that they probably aren't really worth the hype, nor are they really that effective. And it's funny because if I think about how I teach things now and the things that the things that I believe in, it's the same boring shit that I've known since I first started my own nutrition journey when I was 19 years old, and I will talk a little bit about that in particular, like the things that I know have not changed. I've not changed my mind on, but I do want to really kind of decipher a couple of the things that I feel like are important for you guys to understand that I at one point also believed myself, and why. And the reality is it's all opinion, but the reason I've changed my mind on that is because I've seen and heard and actually started to be more educated in terms of just so. For example, it's very easy to get hung up on what you hear doctors saying, and they're all over social media. And I'm not going to name any names because I have a lot of respect for a lot of doctors, but we see things being put on social media from doctors and people that we think we should be able to trust in the health and wellness space. And oftentimes they're just opinions. They're not actually science-backed studies. And a lot of their studies are actually backed and funded by themselves. So it's so important to realize that it's important to do research. And that's why I've really, really dove into nutrition research and science and stuff like that before deciding if something is effective or impactful. So I want to go over some things fitness and nutrition related that I have in the past believed and have shifted my mind on. A lot of them are pretty simple. So let's get to it. First and foremost, this is a big one for me. I, for the longest time, believed that I should not be eating processed foods or sugar. I thought that processed food and sugar was making me sick, was going to make me fat, was going to make me diabetic, was going to infect, my gut, my hormones, my metabolism. I was just meant to believe that, or made to believe that anything that came out of a box or that was packaged was bad for me. And I avoided those foods for years. I was notorious for reading food labels where I'm like, oh, if it has more than 5 ingredients, it must not be good for me. And I've learned over time that that is not the case. And that the reality is when it comes to things like processed food, packaged foods, sugar, and things like that, the real problem isn't the foods, it's the consumption of those foods. It's hard to control the amounts of them. And so the correlation is these foods cause these problems. They cause weight gain, they cause these sicknesses, these illnesses, these conditions. But the real truth is that the cause of those conditions is not the food, it's the amount of calories consumed. And so when calories aren't controlled, yes, and those foods do tend to be easy to overconsume. So I actually feared adding these foods in for the longest time. And what would happen is I would not eat them. And then I would allow myself to have a little bit. And then I'd be like, you know what? I better just get out of my system because I am not going to have these foods for a long time again. So it took me a long time to develop the confidence in myself and overcome the fear that these foods were not going to make me sick. And I will be honest, I still limit them because at the end of the day, I know they're calorie dense and I don't want to waste my calories on something so small. I am definitely more of a volume eater. It's just how I've eaten for a long time. So if I'm going to have those things, I know I'm going to have to sacrifice a little bit of volume for the amount of food that I'm going to get. So definitely don't think that processed foods and sugar needs to be avoided. In fact, I'm going to be fully transparent with you. I had this thought of doing a challenge for November. I was going to do a no sugar November. And I ended up changing my mind because I knew why I wanted to do it, because I do find that some people struggle with feeling like they're out of control, like they don't have any power over these foods that are hyper palatable. And now they're going to be all around, especially after Halloween. And I wanted to prove to them that they actually don't need those foods. But then I realized that I'm feeding that mindset in a lot of those people that maybe they do believe that sugar is bad. And that's not what I wanted them to get out of it. So I'm like, you know what? This just does not feel authentic to me. I have spent a long time getting myself more comfortable eating sugar. I don't want my clients to think that. Do I think it's important to limit it? Absolutely. So I ended up taking that back, and I might do something a little bit different. I haven't decided yet, but I pulled the plug on it because it just didn't feel authentic to me because of this. I have developed a relationship where I know it's okay to have some processed food and sugar, and it's not going to kill me or hurt me. And I want you to do the same thing. So it's okay to have those things. More importantly, I think that when it comes to this whole concept is we often focus on what we should be taking out of our diets. And what I have learned is by adding to my diet, adding more lean proteins, adding more fruits and vegetables, adding more complex carbs, and for me, most importantly, getting comfortable eating more calories, I don't have to worry about overdoing it on these foods. And the reality is all foods are processed. Everything has to go through some kind of processing. I do try and stick to a minimally processed diet, but mostly for that purpose of like, I look at the nutrients I'm getting in the foods that I'm consuming. And as I mentioned, the calorie density of those foods. So that's the number one thing I wrote. Number two, I wrote down is that carbs aren't essential and that eating fat means you burn more fat. These were two beliefs, and I put them in the same because I want to kind of debunk both of them. And I'm going to start by the whole carbs are non-essential thing. So for the longest time, I told myself and a lot of people that you don't need to be eating carbs because carbs, your body can, produce energy from things like fats and other foods, right? And that is a true statement that we can actually survive in the absence of carbohydrates. However, that doesn't mean that is optimal. Okay. And this is something that I've changed my mind on. I used to believe that being fat adapted was the right thing. And I learned the hard way that that was actually the wrong thing, especially depending on what kind of lifestyle you live. So from a performance aspect of things, if you are somebody that values getting stronger, getting fitter in the gym, especially if you're doing some kind of a high intensity based training or endurance training, carbohydrates are your body's preferred source of energy. So can we make energy from other sources? Absolutely. We can convert protein to energy. We can convert fat to energy, but it is way harder for the body to do that. And the whole reason for this whole belief, right? It comes down to the purpose. I was trying to find ways to lose body fat. And I thought that by removing carbohydrates, I would be more likely to lose body fat. And that's why I put two pieces of this. Okay. Because the truth is, it's not the absence of carbohydrates that are going to help you to burn more body fat. You will burn fat for fuel in the absence of carbohydrates. Again, it's not preferred by your body, but that does not mean you will lose more body fat. So I thought that by only eating fats and proteins and vegetables and minimal carbs, I was going to be able to burn more body fat. The only way to burn through body fat, regardless of what energy source you're using, is to put yourself in a calorie deficit. So number one and number two, common ground here, we need to control calories. So if I'm eating 2,000 calories from fat and a deficit for me is 1,600 calories, I'm still not going to lose weight because I'm eating more calories than I'm consuming, even if I'm eating zero carbohydrates. And I see this a lot with people that are following diets like keto and carnivore, or whatever other diet that they're following that restricts carbohydrates. Not to mention, they don't feel good on it. And regardless of if you have goals about performance or anything like that, carbs are amazing, right? Like pasta sauce with spaghetti. I mean, like having a slice of toast with your eggs, that's also enjoying life. And yes, we can totally live without carbohydrates, but does it mean that we have to? And it's not optimal. And like I mentioned, the whole purpose for this was like I was telling myself that carbohydrates were the enemy. And it wasn't the carbohydrates that were the enemy. I was trying to avoid the hard truth that it was calories. And in these times, I'm going to be honest, when I was limiting processed foods and I was restricting carbohydrates, I was freely eating as much as I wanted of the other foods and wondering why I was gaining weight, because it's very easy to eat lots of nuts and nut butters and high fat meats and all of that kinds of stuff and easily get more calories. And I know this because this is the stuff that I am recently having to change in my own diet to gain weight. I'm having to add in more of those dense foods. So you can be eating as clean as possible and still gain weight. That's number 2. Number 3, another one I'm going to add in here. Everyone should be gluten and dairy free. And this goes back to my paleo days. I was like, your stomach is sick, this is it. It's because you need to avoid gluten. Gluten and dairy are making you have leaky gut, and they're leading to all of these other issues. And I was convinced that they were at the root cause of every problem. And to be honest, okay, a lot of people do have gluten and dairy and some food sensitivity. It's very, very, very common. But those are not the problem. And this is, again, something that I've changed my mind on. It's kind of like if you have a headache and you take Advil, right? Like, why do you have the headache? You don't know, but you're taking Advil because it's not going away. Sometimes you might know why you have a headache. Maybe you had a poor night of sleep. Maybe you were hungover. Maybe you jarred your neck doing a overhead press or something like that. Whatever reason, but it's not fixing the problem. And if it keeps happening, you keep getting these chronic headaches and you just keep taking Advil, you're just masking the symptom. And elimination diets and removing gluten and dairy are the same thing, because this is the problem. The problem is, why is your body not breaking those foods down? If some people can do it and you can't, why? Why is that? And I have found over time and time again that most of the people that struggle with these types of sensitivities, unless they were diagnosed with something underlying like celiac or Crohn's, which still has a root cause, often have high stress, low sleep. Those are the things that are common because those things impact your gut motility. They impact your body's ability to produce those enzymes. And the other thing I find is a lack of nutrient-dense foods like fruits, vegetables, and fibers that help your body produce those enzymes. So that's really where the root problem is. It's not gluten and dairy that is the problem. That is the symptom. And removing it just removes the symptom. It removes the symptom. It's like you can't figure out what the problem is, and you're just pulling that out so that you don't deal with the problem. So again, that is not the cause. And then the reality is, from a weight loss or fat loss perspective, that's doing nothing for you. I used to convince myself that if something was gluten-free, it was healthier. Doesn't mean it's healthier. Anyways, so number 4. This is all kind of coming together, right? I can avoid counting calories if I eat clean. Now, I'll be honest, you don't have to count like every single calorie. Like I love it when somebody tells me, I don't want to get stuck counting every single morsel of food or weighing out every single thing. And I'm like, what are you eating that is so complicated, right? Like, it's that hard to put your food on a food scale. They leave everything to guess. Like, I just eat clean. Okay. Eating clean is great. Like I said, definitely, I am all about like 80% of my diet. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, my hands are dirty. I just did handstand walking earlier, and the gym floor. I just looked at them like, oh, they must be thinking I'm a dirty girl. Anyways, but the whole clean eating thing, yes, I try and make sure that the majority of my diet is giving me nutrients. It's not what I'm avoiding. It's okay, these foods are giving me a lot of nutrients. In fact, I bought these cookies the other day, and I think they're by Simple Mills. And it wasn't that they're like a very similar to an Oreo. It wasn't that I can't have the Oreo cookie. It was that when I looked at the ingredients in the Simple Mills cookies, I'm getting things from like cashew butter and almond flour. So I'm getting a lot more nutrients, right? I'm getting some benefits to having those. Whereas the Oreos, yes, I could totally have them. They taste amazing. But I'm getting the Oreo, which is carbs and fats and proteins, but not really getting a lot of the nutrients from them. So I chose the more nutrient dense version of the cookie. Doesn't mean I can't have the Oreo. In fact, that's a good idea for an Instagram reel. I think I'm gonna put that out there. But yeah, you can't, you cannot, clean eating does not outweigh calorie control. You cannot eat yourself lean on clean. Now you can, oh, that's good too. I got to write that down. You cannot eat yourself clean on lean. I'm gonna write that down. Or eat yourself lean on clean. You guys get to get some of my, this is how we get creative. Um, okay. So yeah, you have to still control calorie intake. Now, is it really hard to overdo your calories if you're only eating clean, simple foods? Yes, but it doesn't mean it's impossible. I could very easily gain weight eating a very clean diet. I could down a ribeye steak, which is clean food, if I had a grass-fed ribeye. So it's just knowing that you have to have both. You need to have getting in enough nutrients, but also ensuring that you're not getting in too many calories. So that was the next one I wrote. And then number 5 one I put for in terms of nutrition was, this is a good one. I really fully believe that like that post-workout shake and that post-workout window was so important that I had to have my protein shake post-workout. And I was like so notorious. And I used to not even count it towards my daily intake. I was told like, oh, you don't have to count it your daily protein needs. That's like your recovery. I'm like, dude, it's still calories. Like, that meal still counts. Like it's still going in my body. But I was convinced to believe that I needed to have that post-workout shake and that it didn't really count towards my calorie needs for the day because it was like replenishing my workout. I mean, this goes into the whole, like, how many of you guys, if you track food on MyFitnessPal, you see that it gives you exercise calories back. Like that doesn't make any sense. So I did. I believe that like you needed a protein shake post workout, and that's what mattered most. And if you didn't do that, you were gonna, have poor recovery or whatever. And now, obviously, I know that's not the case. Do I think that it's important to eat post workout? Absolutely. And most of you guys within, 90 minutes to 2 hours should be getting hungry after your workout. Like that's pretty normal. You expended some energy, your body's going to be looking for energy. And I actually didn't value the carbohydrates that you should be eating post workout, especially for CrossFit, because we're glycogen depleted and we need to have those, glycogen stores, replaced, and the impact on cortisol levels. Protein's not going to help those things. Carbohydrates do. So I do think it's beneficial to get some protein in post-workout, but it does not have to be within 30 minutes. It can definitely be at your next meal. In fact, for me, I am definitely the kind of person now where I don't really drink protein shakes ever. I like baking with protein. I like making smoothies with protein, but I don't just drink protein and water, I definitely make sure that I'm doing some other things. I used to love this was my excuse for drinking chocolate milk, because chocolate milk is really good for recovery. But you don't need it post-workout. And if you are trying to lose weight, oftentimes I tell people to kind of limit liquid calories, even from protein shakes, because it's calorie dense. I mean, I'd much rather see you feel more satiated on food if you're getting hungry. Like, I mean, a lot of people are big on, doing the post-workout carbs in a powder. Well, that's great if you have plenty of carbohydrates in your diet. But if you are on a calorie restricted diet, and you've only got a limited number of carbs, like that's going to be expensive on your overall daily budget and likely not make you feel very full. So I do like to make sure that I get protein in, but I don't think so much about this like post-workout shake and needing to have it. So those are like some nutrition related ones. Now I want to kind of shift gears into some training related ones and even lifestyle related ones. And the first one that I wrote down here is walking is an exercise. I will be honest, there was a time where I did not think that walking was exercise. And maybe you don't think walking is exercise. But at the end of the day, walking is actually very good exercise. And for some people, it might be all that they need right now. In fact, over the past weekend, I had a lot of anxiety going into the weekend, and I wasn't quite sure why. And I think I was just walking the fine line of overtraining because I have been pushing it a lot harder in the gym because I've been getting better. I've been feeling better. I've been getting stronger. And come Saturday, I was like, you know what? Like, I don't have the desire to push myself on this rower the way that I know that I need to. So I'm going to skip that. I'll put a weight vest on and I'm going to go for a walk. And I went for an hour walk, and that's what my fitness was that day. And I think that a lot of people don't realize that walking is exercise. And, you know, intentionally, we might have to add that in because we have a very sedentary lifestyle as well. So if you're sitting behind a desk and behind a car the majority of your day, you might have to add a second session in. If there was one thing that I really liked about the 75 hard, it's that 2 workouts a day. But I would love for people to say that the second one is just a walk. Like, that's something that I think would be very beneficial. So that's kind of my thoughts. I used to think that walking wasn't enough. And I do think that it can be. Do you need to do more of it to get the same caloric expenditure from? So here's the deal. Whether I walk a mile or I run a mile, I'm probably going to burn the same amount of calories. One is just going to be a lot faster than the other. So, in fact, maybe I will do a test on this. I'm going to run a mile and then walk a mile. And I'll have to do it at separate times of the day because I don't want them to influence each other. That's a good idea. Good test. But it's probably going to burn the same amount of calories. So you got to realize that it doesn't really matter because walking is just lower intensity. And that's really what it is. So you might need to go a little bit longer. So, but I do think that walking is exercise. The next one I wrote down was my opinion on bodybuilding. Movements like bicep curls, tricep extension, rows, flies, split squats, and things like that. When I got into CrossFit, okay, so before CrossFit, I was already drinking the high intensity and CrossFit style Kool-Aid. I was teaching group fitness classes, step aerobics, kickboxing, boot camp. And it had always been that girl that was like wanting to use dumbbells and do more functional movements. And I kind of avoided the isolation movements. I would do them, but not very often. And I guess I did them in like the body pump classes. But as I got into CrossFit, I'm like, well, it's not functional to do hamstring curls because when you're picking something up off the ground, like you're not going to be like curling your leg to like do a hamstring curl. So why does this matter? Deadlifts are better. Why am I going to do just whatever, a bicep curl when I can do a pull up? And while I do find the value and definitely think that compound functional movements are literally the most impactful and effective way to get fit, to get strong, to build muscle, and they are the foundation of everything that I do myself and everything that I teach, I do think that bodybuilding is actually very good. And I used to think that it was easy. Like, I used to look at that like the reason they do bodybuilding is because it's too hard to do CrossFit. And it's a different kind of hard. And so I think that I definitely gave bodybuilding like a little bit of whatever you want to call it, but like just didn't give it enough credit for what it is. But a lot of times if you watch bodybuilders, they are going to failure on movements. And maybe it's a movement that you look at as like, that's a stupid movement to go to failure on, but it doesn't mean that they're not pushing themselves. They're just pushing themselves in a different way. And when it comes to muscle building, for a lot of people, some of the movements in CrossFit are a little bit too demanding on, whether it's the central nervous system, whether it's joints, and doing bodybuilding, primarily like functional bodybuilding, can really, really, really help improve your definition in your muscles, help you build lean muscle tissue without putting that stress on your body. So I definitely have changed my opinion on bodybuilding. And in fact, I used to hate doing accessory work, which is quote unquote bodybuilding for CrossFitters. And now it's usually my favorite part of my session. Like, I hate skipping and I used to skip it altogether. And now I love the accessory work. So definitely have changed my mind on bodybuilding. Number 8, well, this is number 3 on the fitness side of things. I wrote down calories burned during exercise is what matters. So I used to be notorious for chasing like the sweat, the feeling of being like drenched and so tired and out of breath and how much cardio did I do, rather than like the sessions that were just lifting. And I used to focus so much on the calories burned in my workouts rather than how my workouts were impacting my fitness and my body composition. And I mean, when I changed that, I actually learned, hey, this is actually what your body really needs. So, and it's a hard thing to switch because what I think what it is we like that feeling. You know, you like the feeling of like being out of breath and tired, like you feel like you worked hard. And when you don't get that, you don't think you're working hard enough. But honestly, the majority of people don't realize that you're not burning that many calories in your workout, 200, 300 max. And so, I mean, that's like a protein bar. So like, it's like, I'm going to go work out and burn calories. I'm going to eat a protein bar and put them right back in. But the impact that workout has on your fitness, on your strength is more impactful. So I definitely think that shifting from focusing on calories burned during exercise to focusing on what that exercise is actually doing for my body is most important. And that's the adaptation that we're looking for. So we have to be stressing our bodies out so we can, obviously cause the adaptation. But the calories, in fact, your body adapts to calorie burn a lot quicker than we realize. So like, for instance, running a mile, as that gets easier, you're going to be burning less calories because your body's getting more efficient at it. So it's not really a good way to, obviously for one, lose weight or control your weight. You're better off obviously focusing on what you can do in the gym and fueling that, and then obviously focusing on your calories taken in rather than burned. So one thing that I will say is that for some people, I do have to put an emphasis on caloric expenditure during exercise. If they are very sedentary, they might have to actually add in more activity because they're so sedentary. And for some clients, walking is just like boring and they don't want to walk. So I'm like, okay, well, let's get on a bike. Let's get on a rower. Let's get on a skier. Let's get you moving a little bit more because that's going to help. So, but I definitely have changed my mind on that for sure. This is all kind of tying together as well. The next one I wrote down was intensity over volume. So I used to be the coach that was like, you got to go harder. You got to go harder. Like 21:59 as hard as you can. That's like what you should do. You should be doing. And I believed that for a long time. Like that was like the shortcut to the good stuff is what I was kind of told and meant to believe. And while I do see the benefits in going there periodically, just to see what you're capable of, from an overall health, fitness, and body composition perspective, that really isn't what you need. So from a what I can do, how hard can I work from an athlete perspective? Yes, for sure. But from a body composition, from a health and fitness perspective, I don't think that it's really necessary. And sometimes that kind of a feeling or even a mindset can turn somebody off. In fact, I think that's kind of what happened to me on Saturday is I felt this pressure of like how hard I was going to have to work. And I just didn't want to do it, So I think that sometimes lowering the intensity and doing what feels good to your body is more important and beneficial. So that would be my suggestion if you guys struggle with that mindset is to recognize that volume is actually more important. And thinking about this in relation to bodybuilding, bodybuilders do try and get max reps. And so anyways, that's my thoughts on the whole intensity versus volume. I think that there is definitely a mixture of the two that we need, but I don't think that intensity outweighs volume. I think that moving well, getting in the right dose of volume and progressively overloading in whatever you're doing, even in CrossFit, because there's progressive overload in CrossFit as well, in a number of ways is more important. And then the last one that I wrote down is probably the most important one to me. And this is going to really hit home for hopefully a lot of you, if you're listening to this, is the definition of healthy. You know, this is something that I have recently been really reflecting on and what I believe health to be. Like, what is a measure of health and what does it mean to be healthy? What does it mean to eat healthy? And I think that for a long time, healthy in my mind was eating really healthy foods. Like I had, foods that were unhealthy or healthy, working out regularly. And those were like the two metrics, right? Like it was like they're working out, they're living an active lifestyle, and they're like eating really healthy. And defining like eating really healthy was like eating clean foods and, controlling their calories and all that kinds of stuff. They've got good meal. Now I realize that healthy is so much bigger than what you're eating and what you're doing in the gym. Being healthy is being able to eat clean foods, but also being able to have a cupcake or a cookie and not feel stressed, guilty about it, not letting it trigger you to eat 5 or 6 cookies. It's having a healthy relationship with your food. Being healthy isn't just, feeling like I think we see these people online that have these great bodies and they, look like they're a walking picture of health. They talk about, how they don't eat any processed foods and they have all these morning habits or whatever. Like, but if that's taken away from your joy of life or your presence in your day, I don't think it's healthy. Like I think healthy is finding balance between, you know, giving a level of responsibility and priority to eating healthy whole foods and moving your body, but it doesn't necessarily have to be all or nothing. And that, you know, it can be healthy to go out and be out until midnight and enjoy a couple of drinks with your friends and wake up the next morning and just get back to routine. Like that's healthy. Eating healthy is, like I said, some days it's like, you know what, I just want to go get a donut and a freaking latte from Starbucks today, because most of the time you're eating egg whites and toast and avocado, So the definition of health for me has really changed. And a lot of the people that I feel like we look to as quote unquote healthy don't open up about the mental side of what it looks like to maintain a healthy lifestyle. So I think that relationships with self, with other people around you, are all a part of being healthy. And if the way you're living your life to change your body, to change your fitness and all that stuff is taken away from what makes you happy, I don't believe it's healthy. I think that health is something that is personally, I think, defined by when you are finding that balance between I am happy with how I look and feel. I am eating well. I know what my body needs. Sometimes I have to give myself tough love, and other times I have to give myself grace. And that's really like the main thing is that's really what health is to me. And that's why I wanted to end on that, because I think that at the end of the day, what I want everybody that sees me, that knows me, that works with me to know is that I'm going to start crying right now. I'm getting emotional. um, that's what I want for everybody and also for myself. And if I think, and maybe that's why I'm getting emotional, because if I think back to where my life was in 2023, and the majority of 2024, as I've come back from it, like I was not a picture of health. Last year I was close to dying, and I don't think I even acknowledged that. And I know I've talked about being sick, but being told that you're 39 years old and you're in a hospital bed with liver, kidney, and heart failure, as somebody who 2 days ago was freaking doing ski intervals and snatching and muscle upping and all of these things, was hard. And I don't think I truly soaked that in. And then when I think back to just a lot of things leading up to that, I think that there's just something to be said about health isn't just, how you look, how you eat, and how you train. It's how those things impact your overall life. So, anyways, I don't want to make this about me. This is definitely about you guys, giving you guys a little bit of insight as to some things I have changed my mind on over the years. And that's what I got today. I hope you guys are all having a great week. If you are in my Facebook group and you did see the notes about the sugar challenge, don't worry. I'm going to be doing another challenge. Probably going to be doing some mini challenges instead. I know we have the holidays coming up, so I've got already some holiday accountability stuff for you all, which I know that my clients don't really need, because let's be honest, Christmas, New Year's, part of being healthy is they're part of every single year. So we're going to get through it. Anyways, if this resonated with you guys have any other things that you have, beliefs that you guys want to talk about, want to share with me, would love to hear. I am going to go work on my intensity on my lunch break today. I got some wonderful bike sprints that I've been avoiding for the past couple of weeks, but time to get back into it. So I'm going to hit them today. If you guys need anything, you know where to find me. I will talk to you guys all on the next episode.